Well, our theme this month is non-attachment. Just take a breath right now. So the one thing I know about these themes is it means I have to live it. And what's interesting about the themes for 2016, we usually pick the themes for the year around October or November for the next year. But for some reason or another, back in 2014, 2 sets of themes came up. I thought, oh, well, we'll just do that. So this was chosen like a couple of years ago for this month. And it never ceases to amaze me how right on time everything always is. So the theme this month is non-attachment. And my topic today is dissipating my desire for certainty. Dissipating my desire for certainty. Now, the way I came up with that topic was from the spirit definitions. You know, I get these downloads, these spirit letters. Some of them are in a series called Letters from the Infinite. The dictionary is yet to be published, and it keeps evolving. The dictionary talks about spiritual qualities as a convergence of energy, something we bring to the table, some action that takes place that meets what spirit already has there, and that it tells us basically the formula of what it is we need to do to really embody the spiritual qualities that are already there and are, part of our spiritual DNA. And it describes non-attachment this way. It says non-attachment is where your desires for certainty dissipate. Now, I'm not even going to put the rest of it right there. Just let that sink for a moment. Where your desire for certainty dissipates. I didn't have a real appreciation for that word dissipate until I moved to Santa Cruz. And moved in, I've lived 26 years now in Aptos, which is known as the fog belt. I'm from LA. What do I know about fog belts? But it's such a thick concentration of fog, you can see it. You can see it from other places of the city, and you're driving right into it. Okay? But fog just lifts. It just dissipates. Okay? It's like it clears up and it vanishes, and everything that you couldn't see clearly before is right before you. Okay? The fog just literally clouds it up. We often think like the sun's not shining. No, the sun is always shining. Sometimes we rotate away, or sometimes it's clouded up, but we need to stop waiting for the sun to shine, because the sun's always shining. We need to find a way to dissipate the fog, to remove the clouds, to turn our direction more towards it. So it's non-attachment is where your desires for certainty dissipate into my infinite possibilities. Where your desires for certainty dissipate into my infinite possibilities. So when that desire dissipates, lifts like the fog, it dissipates into something. I want you to catch that. It's not like the infinite possibilities are coming in and taking over. The fog has to dissipate. The sun was always there. It's the fog that gives way to the sun. The sun's not taking over the fog gives way to the sun. Okay? Your desires for uncertainty have to lift into the infinite possibilities. The infinite possibilities cannot come in and overtake all of your desires. The infinite possibilities are not going to come in and overtake all of your desire. You have to let them lift. Like the fog, you have to let them dissipate. And if there's a willingness to let them live, then the infinite possibilities are the same way to your desires as the sun is to the fog. Warms it up, clears it up. The Buddhists say that the root of all of our problems is basically desire. It's attachment. It's attachment that's the problem. Not money as the root of all evil. It's attachment. And even then, in the Christian traditions, when we talk about money as the root of all evil, even that is a misconception. What it says in Scripture is that you cannot serve two gods. God and Mammon is the name that's given to it in English. And Mammon is not riches. Mammon is not money. Mammon is the love of money. It is the attachment to the material world. It's saying you can't do both. You can't really serve God and serve materiality, the attachment to materiality. One will be your God. But you can't share it. So you make a God out of anything that you allow to define you and your possibility. This attachment. The attachment comes from our sense of what's familiar, of what is known. We get attached to what we know, whether we want it or don't want it, whether we like it or don't like it. The ego mind sense gets attached to what it knows. And it has a very difficult time letting go of what it thinks it knows. Even in the light of facts that completely destroy what it thinks it knows, it still has a hard time letting go of what it thinks it knows. Do I have any witnesses in the house? Attachment comes from the familiar. When we are attached to what has been in a longing sort of way, that's a sentimentality. It's a sentimentality where we get attached to what has been and keep longing for it. When we get stuck on our way or the future, we are attached to our perceptions of how it ought to be or how it should be. That idea, that perception has become familiar to me. It's the way that I see it. It's the way that I think about it. And it becomes very difficult for me to see or want anything other than what I'm already attached to. And it doesn't mean, once again, you have to like it. This is where addictions come from. We're attached to a lot of stuff we don't want or that we don't like. But it is so familiar to us that it feels like us. We begin to identify with what we think we know. So much so that to disagree with my opinion, we take as disagreeing with me. Listen to what I just said. We identify so much with what we know or what we think, we cannot make distinctions. So that somehow or another, if you have a different opinion than I do, you are opposed to me. If you don't see it the way that I see it, this causes a rift. See, differences do not cause conflict. Differences never caused conflict. It's polarization around that causes conflict. It's the polarization. You want to go east, I want to go west. That's not a conflict. It's not a conflict. You want us to move here, I want us to stay there. That's not a conflict. You want the kids to go to church, I don't. That's not a conflict. It's not a conflict until we make it personal. It's not a conflict until we start drawing a line in the sand and attaching ourselves to the belief, and that in the name of fighting for the belief, we're really fighting for ourselves. That's what we're fighting for. We are fighting for ourselves when we cannot release the attachment. I don't know why I'm telling this story. This could have been 10 years ago. I was having a conversation with my father at the breakfast table that I had sat at, well, not that particular table, but in that room all my life, there in the house I grew up in. And ever since my 20s, well, maybe early 30s, I had tried to make it a point to butt out of their marriage, my parents' marriage, and to quit registering my opinions about their marriage. Okay? They were already married 10 years before I was born. So by this time, they'd been married about 55 years. And he was complaining about her. I don't even remember what the complaint was. I just lost it. I just lost it. And I started raising my voice, and I was like, Dad, leave it alone. Let it go. Let it go. If she hasn't changed in 55 years, she's not going to. Okay, let it go. Let it go. And I will never forget what he said. I'm not trying to change your mother. Excuse me? He said, I'm not trying to change your mother. I just consider it a moral victory that I can't be changed. I just consider it a moral victory that I can't be changed. And I realized for 45 years I'd gotten it wrong. I misunderstood the whole thing. I thought they were busy trying to change the other one. No, they were fighting for their own attachment to who they were. They weren't really trying to change the other one. They were just attached to who they are. Are you with me? I contend that's a lot of what's happening in our political arena. A lot of the fighting and the arguing and the squabbling that's going on, it can look like somehow or another all the different sides are trying to change the other. Not true. They've given up on each other as much as my parents did. Everybody's fighting to stay attached to where they are. And trying to prove that they can't be moved. It's no before it even comes out your mouth because of who you are. I've already disagreed with what you're going to say before I've heard it. Then my whole commitment is making sure that I never agree with you. Lest I wouldn't be quite as much me. Listen to what I'm saying. So on the micro, so on the macro, the inner, the outer, they're the same thing. So whether we're talking about at home, the job, the political arena, becomes all the same thing. This attachment that we have to our positions. And we become like that tree by the river, we will not be moved. But we're attached to the wrong things. We are attached to the wrong things. My topic today, dissipating my desire for certainty. Because we like the familiar so much, we want to predict. We want certainty. There's something about our psyche that cannot handle a void. Our ego psyche cannot handle the void. But the void is where the place of all possibility is. The void is the mystery. And our ego doesn't want to live in the mystery of life. Our ego is always filling in the blanks. Always. If there were a deck of cards, like they used to do animation, like movement by movement by movement, and it was the fast flicker that made it seem like it was in motion. Or if someone were to do a quick visual movie, video, of some kind of a glass object, vase or something, water, rolling off the side of a table, on its way down to crash, but stopped the images before the crash. Something like 80% more of people watching that will report they saw it crash. In very vivid detail about the water splashing or what, because that in their minds was the logical conclusion. But it actually was not there. Are you with me? It actually was not there. This is the problem with quote-unquote eyewitnesses. Because eyewitnesses are filling in the blank of what their mind assumes would have been there. Part of this spiritual journey now is learning not to just fill in that blank, of really being able to see the facts stop here. This is all we know. When the doctors give you that prognosis, they're just telling you this is all we know. Okay? Or you're looking at the stock market. This is just all we know. This is just all we know. But is that tendency to get anxious and want to know something certain that we start filling in the blanks with all this stuff that really doesn't even exist. Okay? We're not sure about the relationship. We don't know. We don't know. They didn't call. You don't know. But we fill it in. Are you with me? We're busy filling it in. And how many of you have had that experience where you filled in the gap with stuff only to find out that wasn't the truth? Or how quickly our emotions change. I'm mad at you, you didn't call, and I have this whole story. Oh, and then I found out that you're in an accident. Boom, completely changes. Or I'm all worried, I thought you were in the accident. Boom, your emotions instantly change. Because it was just running off of whatever it is you were saying. Are you with me? Too many of us want to have certainty around Murphy's Law. It's like if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. So we are busy filling in the blanks with what we are certain is going to happen negatively. That's what we're doing. And that's part of our survival mechanisms. If we were back in the caveman days, and there was a rustle in the leaves, it could be a deer, it could be a bear. But our inner psyche is always going to take it to the nth degree, the worst situation, so it can be prepared. Because heaven forbid you're only at alarm for the deer and it's really a bear. So we are allowing the most primitive parts of our brains to run our lives. We have 21st century nuclear power. And I'm not just talking about the weapons of mass destruction like arsenals in the army. Your mouth is a weapon of mass destruction. Your social networking media is a weapon of mass destruction. I mean, we have so much power to press the button. We talk about who has the button, who do we elect that's going to have their finger on the red button. You got a red button. You got one. Breathe that in for a moment. And there's an infinite possibility. Work with your ego. If your ego is going to fill in the blanks, fill it in with something that's going to work for you. Because we know we are co-creative beings. It is done unto us as we believe. Whatever we keep conceiving, that's what we get to experience. So if you're going to keep filling in the blanks, even if you don't believe in spirituality, even if you don't believe in God or a higher power or anything like that, even if we're talking about this on a purely secular level, you don't know what's on the other end of that fact. It is just as equal to do one thing as it is another. I don't know why I'm here. My grandmother, I guess because I'm using her furniture right now. I mean, I brought it up here with me, and I've been cleaning off her chairs and whatnot for my little barbecue tomorrow. Her spirit is with me. And she used to always tell me, Deborah, you can marry a rich man as easy as a poor one. That was, that was her. It's like that was her advice. You can choose something that's going to work against you as well as you can choose something that's going to work for you. It's equal opportunity thinking. Equal opportunity. You don't know the outcome anyway, so why not pick an outcome that at least has you win? Whether you believe in God or not. Why don't you at least do that? Why don't you at least pick an outcome that does something like that? We did this interesting exercise. I have this program going on now for another 5 or 6 weeks or so called For Such a Time as This. It's an advanced skills building for societal oneness, online, on telephone, and some people are dropping in. It's an hour at noon Pacific Daylight Time. This exercise that we just got through doing must have been a list of 20, 25 things. All kind of stuff, from undocumented workers, homelessness, poverty, Republicans and Democrats, as a group, all these different war, peace, all these different kinds of issues, justice, and you were to just write down the first two things that came to your mind. That was it, boom, first two things. And what everybody noticed was that the first two things that came to their mind most often were negative. They were negative. Part of what we've been doing in these sessions, is learning that pain pushes until vision pulls. Pain pushes until vision pulls. And we spend so much time talking about the pain. So what I was explaining to them with this exercise, I said, look, we're always involved in conversation somewhere. And these first couple of things out of your mouth about these issues, or the moment that you write them down on this piece of paper, a dialogue has been started in your own mind. In your own mind. Progressive people have this idea that they are just reacting to all the negativity out there of these other people. No, it's in your mind. You're reacting to your own mind. And we're doing these now so that we lead with some vision. Okay? We start with some vision. That's where the infinite possibilities come in. That's where the infinite possibilities come in. So this idea about releasing my desires for certainty, let me make this clear. The certainty that I am talking about that we have to release is the outer world of effects. Our notion about how we think everything is going to come into being. The hows, the whens, the wheres, and all of the rest of that. But do not for one moment think when I am saying that we have to release our desire for certainty, I am talking about let go of your visions of possibility. That is not what I am saying. What I am saying is that underneath it all is just like a spiritual periodic table of elements. In the material world, there's only so many elements, and everything's just reconfigurations of that. So it is in the spiritual world. There's only love and joy and peace and power and trust and truth and integrity and wholeness. There's an infinite number of these, but there's nothing else other than that. See, with our periodic table of elements, there's a limited number of elements as well as nothing other than that. In the spiritual realm, there's no finite number of qualities, but there is an infinite possibility of those. They are not limited. They are not restricted. They are not constricted. What our minds need to do is to take hold of that, to take hold of it. Because when we can't see how it's going to happen, we let go of the what is the deepest heart's desire. Don't let go of truth and justice. Do not let go of environmental sustainability. Don't let that go. Don't let go of spiritual fulfillment. Do not let go of love. Don't let go of artistic expression. Just loosen up a little bit about what it's going to look like. In your relationships, don't give up on the love and the harmony. Don't give up on the connection. Just lighten up a little bit. about what you think it needs to look like. Lighten up a little bit, because it may not be that way. But because we're so attached to it being that particular way, we can't see anything else. I can't believe I'm going to tell this either. So I don't know how many years ago this was, but I was talking about this similar thing right here. And I was confessing my attachment that I have, how my little pea brain registers love when I'm partnered with somebody and we're living together. Food. My mother's from Baton Rouge. The South, there's always food cooking. You walk in the door and there's an aroma. There's a smell. And the smell of that registers food. And you wouldn't dare walk in a Southerner's house without them trying to feed you before you sit down. It's a cultural thing. And to not do so is not loving. It's not kind. It doesn't matter if you're a stranger. It doesn't matter how much is in the pot. There's always enough for everybody. That's a consciousness, yes? So I was confessing how I would come home and there wouldn't be no pots on. And I'm really pissed if I've been the one gone all day and my wife at the time, Valerie Joy, was home all day working in the studio, and I have to come home and cook dinner, not happy. So I publicly confessed, and the first time admitted in front of her, I just banged the pots a little bit louder. Like that was a secret. And how this one day, I don't know, we could have been together 10 years by then. And she says, I spent hours filling the house up with music. She's a pianist and a vocalist and was our original choir director. Many of you know her. She said, I filled the house up with hours with music. There was this baby grand piano that I had bought her for her 40th birthday when we first moved in here. And she named it Emily, and it just has this beautiful barrel sound in a sunken living room, and it would just, and she asked, could I feel it? And when I stopped for a moment, I could feel it. I wasn't smelling nothing. But I could feel the love. Are you with me? Okay. I cannot rewire that smell because that's one of the strongest senses. But what I have learned how to do now is to not be so attached to that as the only way that my brain can register love, that I miss all the love that everybody else is giving that doesn't smell. We're missing it. We're missing it all over the place with this attachment stuff. And there is this kind of weird cosmic irony where we are right now. The juxtaposition of this with all the divisiveness that's happening in our political arena now. In this 2016 election, I have never witnessed so much bipartisan stuff ever in an election cycle. I'm not telling you who to vote for. But it is this interesting thing to watch these hundreds of Republicans who have been in very high office, who aren't saying vote for Hillary, but they are standing in a place that is so similar to where the other party is, quote unquote, standing. And saying that it is more important that we stand here, that it is more important that we share a vision of possibility for this nation more than we are attached to our partisan sides. This is pushing us to some new levels of non-attachment here. Not giving up on a vision. And can all of us get up off of it long enough to partner with the people going in the same direction, even if they don't look like you? Belong to what you belong to. Dress like you, worship like you, pray like you, vote like you, dress like you, eat like you. Can we give up that attachment that we have? Because the other thing the ego does with this, it assumes that whatever it is attached to is right. Or at least the best. Even when we know we're wrong, we sometimes still think our way is the best. But there are infinite possibilities. You don't know what it can look like. If we just hang on to the ideas of justice, we don't know all the ways that that can show up. If you hang on to your family, haven't you had that experience? When you finally let go of what it had to look like with your child or with your parent, all of a sudden new possibilities came? Yes? But you had to let go. And that's not just trying to get them to change, but to let go of such certainty that you think that you know. It doesn't matter. What do you want? Do you want to be happy? Do you want to be right? It's just like an intersection. Think about our traffic laws in California. We have this thing called the last out. So that even if you have the right of way, if you had the opportunity to prevent that collision, it's on you. Listen, you can have the right of way, you can have the green light, but if that intersection's not clear and you exercise your right, you're going to be dead right. Doesn't matter what the people did in front of you. You rear end them, you're wrong. Because you were supposed to have a certain amount of distance. Are you with me? We call it drive defensively. We need to live like that. So many times you have the last out. You can prevent that collision that's about to happen in your family. And I'm not saying acquiesce, I'm not saying bow down. What I am saying is don't keep rushing in there just like we rush into the intersection when it is not cleared with our way. Yield. Yield. Slow your roll just a little bit to let the Spirit of the living God go before you. And create something new and create something different. Humble yourselves enough to think that you don't have all the answers. And just maybe there can be something beyond what we individually or collectively have conceived of. That's what this moment calls for right now. Not to be certain of doom and gloom, but to be certain that the great I am is bigger than all of it and has infinite potential and possibilities if we are willing to give up our attachment to our side. Because there are at least two sides to every story, and then there's the truth. Let us call forth the truth and be willing to relinquish our side long enough to see it. Breathe that in. Let us pray.